Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to not only discuss but introduce a brand new topic, and this is cybernetics. And specifically, we're going to go through first, second, and third order cybernetics and relate that to nowadays society and systems. So first to start with that cybernetics is the study of systems, communication, adaptation, and feedback. At its simplest level, a cybernetic system survives by continuously receiving information from reality and adjusting itself accordingly. For example, a thermostat is a simple cybernetic system. It measures temperature, it compares that temperature to a desired state, and then it adapts accordingly. So, in a sense, living organisms work similarly. For example, your body constantly regulates itself through feedback, let's say temperature, pain, hunger, fatigue, emotion, stress responses, etc. Without feedback, a system cannot adapt and eventually collapses. But cybernetics become much more interesting once we move beyond machines and biology and begin applying it to human systems. For example, societies are cybernetic systems, economies are as well. Governments, corporations, universities, media platforms, labor markets, and even online communities all function through feedback loops. They observe reality, they process information, make decisions, and attempt to stabilize themselves. At least that would be ideally. The problem begins when systems stop responding to reality accurately. And this is where cybernetics becomes incredibly important for understanding modern society. Many institutions today are operating on distorted, delayed, manipulated, or incomplete feedback. And once feedback becomes corrupted, the entire system begins reorganizing itself around false perceptions. That is what I describe as first order cybernetic failure. So at first order, we have institutions optimizing themselves using, for example, selective metrics. A corporation optimizes quarterly profit. Social media platform optimizes engagement. University optimizes enrollment numbers. Government optimizes public perception and economic indicators. But those metrics often fail to represent the actual human conditions underneath them. A company can report growth while employees are burning out. A university can advertise opportunity while graduates remain unemployed and trapped in debt. A labor market can appear statistically healthy while millions experience underemployment, instability, and rejection. So the system continues functioning internally because its metrics still appear successful. But the feedback has become detached from reality. And once that happens, systems begin self-preserving instead of self-correcting. And now we move on to what we call second-order cybernetics. Second-order cybernetics recognizes that observers themselves are part of the system. Humans are not outside observers of society. We are inside those feedback loops, and this changes everything psychologically because individuals to begin receiving distorted feedback from institutions and internalizing it. Let's say a graduate who has applied for hundreds of jobs and receives rejection after rejection, but instead of the system accurately reporting there are structural failures in the labor market, instead the individual receives feedback saying you need to improve yourself. So you start working harder, you start optimizing more, you get another certification, you write your CV, you start networking more, but that structural instability becomes reframed as the personal inadequacy. And this is one of the most psychologically destructive things broken systems can do. Because millions of people begin blaming themselves for conditions they do not control. At the same time, institutions continue projecting that confidence that technology is growing, there are opportunities everywhere. And technically, none of those statements are necessarily false, but they are disconnected from lived reality. Technology growing does not automatically mean accessible jobs. Economic expansion does not automatically mean humans are thriving. And because the feedback loop is distorted, people cannot accurately interpret their own situation. And that creates isolation, and people feeling like they are the problem. And even while millions of others are experiencing the exact same thing simultaneously, this starts creating what we're going to call a third order cybernetic effect. So people begin comparing experiences collectively through the internet, social platforms, open source communities, forums, shared stories. Individuals do start realizing and recognizing repeating patterns, and the illusion of isolated failure breaks, and people start realizing that it is systemic, and that this is the point where institutional trust starts collapsing. Because trust depends on feedback legitimacy, and society remains stable only while people believe its systems are capable of perceiving and responding to reality honestly. But once enough people detect contradiction between official narratives and lived experience, systems lose credibility. And this is why so many people feel disconnected from education, from media, from corporate culture, from labor markets, from political institutions, from their own governments in general. And that's not necessarily because all expertise is fake, but because people increasingly feel that information itself is filtered through systems optimized primarily for self-preservation. And cybernetically, this creates instability because systems that cannot process accurate feedback lose adaptive capacity. And the loss of adaptive capacity is what collapse actually is. It's not necessarily a sudden destruction in the literal sense of it, but it's rather gradual instability to respond truthfully to reality. And this is why so many things feel broken simultaneously right now. The job market, higher education, scientific publishing, online information systems, creative industries, and even human attention itself, because many systems become optimized around extraction, growth, and metric performance while neglecting long-term human sustainability. But eventually, reality pushes back. And this is where collapse is not only destructive, it's also the feedback itself. And when old systems stop adapting, this is where new systems emerge around those failures. For example, this is why we're seeing increasing interest in open source collaboration, in public knowledge access, in independent education, in decentralized communities, alternative research models, and skill-based contribution systems instead of purely credential-based gatekeeping. And yeah, these systems are imperfect, but they emerge because traditional structures stopped functioning adaptively for large numbers of people. And maybe that's the most important thing about cybernetics is that, it does teach us that reality cannot be ignored indefinitely. And a system can distort feedback, but temporarily. It can also manipulate perception, delay consequences, hide instability, and redirect blame onto individuals. But eventually, reality returns through accumulated contradiction. And when enough people begin recognizing the same contradictions simultaneously, society enters a phase of recalibration, which can be painful, chaotic, uncertain, but it is necessary. And healthy systems are not systems that never fail, but healthy systems are systems that are capable of listening, adapting, and changing in response to reality. And right now, humanity may be rediscovering just how important that really is. So thank you for listening. I hope that you learned something new today, and take care.